guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. Today we're going to be doing my February reading wrap up, finally, after months of not reading and being in a slump. So I've been in a terrible slump since honestly a year ago. I barely read any books last year, less than 100, which is the first time I've done that in many years. And this year I thought it was going to be the same, to be honest, and I was just kind of like, oh, whatever, I'll accept it. And recently I've just kind of felt the desire to read again. So in February I just decided to just embrace a bit of mood reading, read what it is I wanted, and it worked. And I'm definitely feeling out of my slump now, which is really exciting. And not putting pressure on myself to keep trying to read as many books as possible has been very helpful in doing that. So I only have a couple of books to show you here today. Well, more than a couple, I have 6. Let's just jump straight in because I have a lot of thoughts on these books. This book, which I started in January but finished in February, is The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. This has been on my TBR for so long, and it was kind of just very intimidating for me because this is quite a deep novel, but I'm so glad I finally got to this. We follow this girl in a dystopian world where she lives on this island where every few days, weeks, months, it could be anything, something disappears. And it could be anything, it could be spoons, and then suddenly they have no memory of what a spoon is, and they have to go and get rid of all their spoons because they don't know what they're doing with them, they don't know how they work, they're just completely useless to them. And this happens every now and again. They wake up feeling the loss of something, and then they have to work out what that is. There's not a lot more to it. It is not a very plot-driven story as much as it is a character study and also a discussion on government control and humanity and connection and passion. It's such a beautiful story in the way it's told, and becomes more and more relevant and more important as time is going on. I think I felt very empty after reading this. I really struggled to kind of get my thoughts out of my brain because, and still do, it just is so relevant in today's society and so depressing because obviously the control that the memory police have on this society on the island is very relevant to what we have today, especially in America, I would say, but also worldwide and everywhere. And I think it's absolutely depressing to read. I cannot sit here and say I had a good time because it just left me thinking non-stop about everything going on in the world and how sad I am. The front here says beautifully haunting, and that is absolutely correct. The writing style in here is absolutely fabulous. I cannot wait to read another Yoko Ogawa, which I do have on my shelves. I have Housekeeper and the Professor, which I'm so excited for. It was such a slow-paced story. I felt like I was really sludging through the story, but not in a negative way, in a way that it felt heavy. I fell in love with the characters in this story. I connected with them so deeply. Not just our main protagonist, but also the side characters that we meet along the way, like the old man and R. I really liked seeing their story and seeing their struggles, which were a lot of struggles in this world. It's so sad. I cannot express enough how sad this book is, but how important as well. There was an element in here where our main character writes novels and you could see parts of her novel in the story. I did have to slug through those a little bit. I understood the parallels to the world that she was living. I completely understood that, but I was just kind of like, I don't want to read this bit, which is a little bit of a shame, but I could see why they were necessary and why they produced a lovely parallel to the story. But yeah, that was the bit I didn't exactly love. I gave this overall a 4 stars. My main negative just being that it was a hard read to get through, and I don't mean in the conversational topics, which were obviously hard, but I mean more just the writing was a lot sometimes. The writing style, whilst very beautiful and very well written, just felt like a difficult read to get through when trying to get out of a slump. So my personal enjoyment levels were a 4, but I could not encourage people to pick this book up enough, especially now. When was this written? So this was published in 1994, and I think a lot like George Orwell's 1984, this is so relevant to now that it's very scary to read, but also the perfect book to pick up. So I can't encourage people to read this enough. Really enjoyed, and a great book to get me out of a slump. 4 stars. The second book I read was one of my most anticipated releases, and that was Death at Morning House by Maureen Johnson. I am a Maureen stan through and through. I'm sorry, I just have loved every single book I've read from her. Absolutely obsessed, and this one was no different. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It is a YA mystery novel where we follow Marlo Rexler, who is kind of having a hard time at home, and then starts a fire basically, and so she ends up getting invited to go do tours at this house, the Morning House, which was owned by a family, a peculiar family who were very set in their ways and with a regimented routine. That they ate the same things every day. They were very natural, very organic, and they were all very focused on their studies and their passions. And the father there was a little bit of an odd man, and then suddenly 2 deaths happen in the same day, and the family move and never return, and there's a mystery as to what happened with those deaths. But a lot like her Truly Devious series, we also have a current day mystery as well. So we are following a dual timeline mystery story told from the perspective of our main character and also the past. This is literally a carbon copy of Truly Devious. I'm not saying that as a criticism, because I absolutely adored Truly Devious and I adored this almost as much. But if you did not like Truly Devious, or you don't think you'd want to sit through Truly Devious retold with different names, I don't know if I'd recommend this as such. However, if you were a lover of Truly Devious and you want to eat more up, this is the one, because it is almost a copy and paste, honestly, from style to format to setting to everything. However, I couldn't be happier about it, so no complaints from me. I couldn't guess either mystery. I was sending Lauren voice notes telling her exactly what I thought of what was happening and what was going to happen, and I was completely wrong. As per usual, I can never guess a Maureen Johnson mystery, but I had the best time trying and the best time reading this. The atmosphere that Maureen creates is just everything, and she's got such a talent. Writing is just fabulous, and I love the way she writes characters. The main character in this is a bit dislikable, but I still really enjoyed following her story. I think also the discussion on eugenics in this book was really, really good, especially for a YA novel. It was so digestible and easy to understand. I think, you know, teens reading this book would get a sense of what it is without an understanding of what it is without it being a little bit too much. So I thought that was really well handled and discussed. And I love when YA books have a heavy topic surrounding it and the rights and wrongs and the moral complications of those situations. So I really, really enjoyed that in this book. And I always think that Maureen Johnson does a really good job of doing things like that in her stories. There always seems to be an overarching element to it that relates to political agenda in some way. And this was a really, really good one. I gave this a 4 stars. I think I gave Truly Devious a 4.5, so they were pretty close in rating. Thoroughly enjoyed, absolutely obsessed, and I would not mind a sequel. I don't think this is going to be a series. I think this is going to be a standalone, but I would be more than happy to read more books in this series following Marlowe. But yeah, that was another great read to get me out of my slump. I knew Maureen Johnson would be the one for me to do that, so I had a wonderful time, and I actually read this and the next book I'm going to talk about all in one day, so my slump vanished. I had the best day reading. It was amazing. Actually, I'm lying. I read the next 2 books the same day. I read 4 books that day. I don't know what was happening or who I thought I was. But the 3rd book I read that day was Mislaid in Half Parts, Known by Shauna Maguire. This is book 9 in the Wayward Children series, a very short story collection following a bunch of children in this fantasy-esque story where they've all gone through doorway portals to other realms, follow different logics, and therefore when they come back, they feel misplaced. So they end up at Eleanor West's home for wayward children, and we just follow these children throughout this series as they go on adventures and make friendships, find their worlds, visit other worlds. It's just such a magical series that I have a good time with every single book, and I just love the world that Shauna Maguire is creating. It's so vast and so complex, but so easily digestible at the same time. I do, however, have a lot of criticisms in this book. Same as the other book in this series, Where the Drowned Girls Go, my main complaint was that the book feels like a setup to another book and then is all withdrawn. Like, it kind of just feels reversed, and I do feel like this was kind of a pointless book in a way. Like, I don't really know what we got from this book. However, I did enjoy the reading process, so I'm not saying it wasn't a good time. I just, by the end, was like, well, what do you want from me? What did you want me to get out of this book? Because I'm not sure. I also hate this cover, not because it's an ugly cover, but because dinosaurs are my favourite things, especially a veggie dinosaur, okay? And this broke my heart when we had about 2 seconds of dinosaurs and we didn't even get to see this dinosaur. I am furious. Where was my dinosaur content? I was so excited when I saw this cover, so unbelievably excited, and this was the world we spent the least amount of time in this story. However, I was really excited to revisit some of the different worlds, for example, the Shop of Lost Things, which we saw before in a previous book, and I loved. This was a wonderful story for that. I was just so let down because I was expecting a full book about the dinosaur world, and we didn't get it, and I was furious. I will say we got a lot of Cade content in this, and I am a Cade stan through and through. He's my favourite character, and I know that we're waiting for a story, and Sean Maguire has said that they want to handle Cade's story with care, and I understand that, and so I'm patiently waiting. But I feel we had a really good start into this book, seeing Cade's world and the discussions on his previous life as a girl and how that was never really him. I really liked those discussions, and I think it's a really good start on his story. So I don't want to give too much away, obviously, because I don't want to spoil it for you, but that is in this book, and I had a wonderful time reading those bits because I just love Cade with my whole being. He is my favourite character. Yeah, my biggest criticism of this was just that I felt myself wanting more throughout, which is a common theme because it is a very short novel in a very short novel series, but I just felt myself constantly being compelled to stay a little longer in each world and see a little more that we just didn't see, which was really upsetting. That's why I gave it a 3-star, but not because I didn't enjoy it, but because it just felt unfinished and a little bit lacking. But I still had a wonderful time, hence the 3-star, which is a good rating. I did have a great time, and I buddy read this with Jade in one sitting on FaceTime, which was amazing. I had a best time with that as well. Like, I love buddy reading with Jade. It is my favourite thing. And then still on FaceTime to Jade, I started reading Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and so did she. This is a cozy fantasy novel that I've been waiting to read for so long. Like, it's got to be years now that this has been out that I've been waiting. Let me see. Oh, okay, first published in 2023, so about 2 years. And I've literally been itching to read this book ever since, but I didn't want to in my slump and not enjoy the book. So to finally get to this was a really nice feeling, and to read it alongside Jade as well was really lovely. We follow Emily Wilde, who is studying fairies and completing a research paper surrounding them. So she visits this town that I am not going to try and pronounce in order to study and ask questions, explore the lore surrounding these fairies. And then her arch nemesis slash friend from the office, is a little bit of a weird situation, Wendell, turns up and assists her in her research surrounding the Fae. There is not much you can say here without giving away spoilers, but I will say in the first 100 pages this was so close to being a DNF. Like, me and Jade were hating our entire lives, and she was quite a bit away from me, I think about 50 pages, and I was like, I hit page 100 and I said, no, keep going, Jade, keep going. I feel something good coming here. And I did. I was right. It was really, really good after that 100-page mark, but the first 100 pages was so sluggish. Oh my god, I was in pain trying to read this book, honestly. But after that point, I flew through and had the best time, and I cannot wait to continue with this series. I'm just waiting for the 3rd book to come out in paperback so I can get them and binge them, because I definitely think this is a bingeable series. I will say that Wendell and Emily are quite bland for fantasy characters. They are not great. They're kind of 2D. They're very vanilla. They're very just bog standard characters. However, I really enjoyed the camaraderie between them and the townsfolk that we ended up seeing come throughout. It gave very small town vibes, which are my personal favourite. So I think it kind of made up for their lack of depth. However, I really hope in the future novels we build a bit more upon them, because yeah, they could have been anyone. You could have slotted in any fantasy character there. They wouldn't have changed who they were. It was just kind of bland. But I did have a really good time, and the story is really good, and the scenes we saw in this were wonderful. If anyone's read it, the party scene, I really enjoyed that scene. Like, I was eating that up. I think my biggest issue with this book was the storytelling is told in diary format. Like, you are reading this as if you're reading Emily Wilde's journal, and that was really hard to get on board with. I think that's why I didn't enjoy it so much in the beginning, because she was literally saying, I eat this for dinner, I go to bed. I wake up, I eat this for breakfast. I go out, I come home and eat this for dinner, I go to bed. Oh my god, I could not have watched that woman eat dinner any more than I did. I was wound up. But after that point, when things start to happen, I did definitely get used to the diary telling format, and I was much more on board with it when things were happening. But I do think, why did we have to read so much about her doing absolutely nothing for so long? I don't know. I do think the way of telling it through diary format was an interesting choice, because whilst I understand, especially with it being a research novel that she's trying to write, it's very interesting and a very good idea. I think that the climatic fight scenes lost any sort of tension for me because I knew it was going to be okay because they're writing in a diary about it. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just a me problem, but that's how I felt personally. Overall though, I gave this a 3.5, which is an amazing rating considering I did not like the first 100 pages of this book. So it definitely blew me away in the second half. Thoroughly enjoyed. I have my issues, but this is a really good, cozy, fun time. I cannot wait to continue. And yeah, I really had a good time reading that whole day. It was wonderful. As you can see, I read a lot from it, so I had the best time. So thank you, Jade, for joining me on that day. The next day, I then read The Fall Risk by Abby Jimenez, my favourite, or one of my favourite romance authors. This is a super short story, which I thought would not work for me, to be honest. I was nervous, to be honest, because it is not long, and I don't know how you can fit a romance that doesn't feel insta-lovey in such a short set of pages. But somehow Abby Jimenez managed it. So the romance follows Seth and Charlotte. Seth is living in this, I think it's an apartment complex. To be honest, I could not picture it very well. And he has a opposite flatmate, and in the apartment opposite lives a woman called Charlotte, who he never really sees. And then one day their stairs are demolished up to their apartment, just gone. The manager of the apartment building is like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And do you want to go to a hotel? And they're like, no, we'll just stay here. Just give us what we need in a bucket, which is a very interesting choice, to be honest. I'd feel concerned that the floor was going to collapse, but I mean, who am I to judge? You then learn more about Charlotte's backstory. Trigger warning for a very heavy element of stalking, it is definitely dark. Seth is the biggest cinnamon roll character ever. He's so cute, and him and Charlotte had so much chemistry, especially in such a short page count. I couldn't believe it. I could picture everything that was happening. I completely believed in their romance. They are literally one of my favorite couples. Obsessed. And it was so unbelievably short. I cannot stress enough how quick and easy this read is and how cute. However, the book is set over Valentine's Day, so I'm confused why this wasn't released before Valentine's Day. That's a little bit odd, but I did have a really good time and it was so sweet. They have friends who also have a little bit of romance. You get kind of a side romance as well, 2 for 1, it was wonderful. Had the best time. Not much to say on it because it is so short and I can't give too much away, but it is adorable and I can't encourage you to pick it up enough. Next, I read The Enemy by Charlie Higson. This is a YA dystopian zombie apocalypse novel. Now, Jade has been recommending this to me for years. I think as long as I've known Jade, which is 5 years, I have been listening to her tell me to read this novel, okay? And I haven't. And I finally did, okay? I picked it up about, I don't know, last summer, I think, with Jade. I think I bought it in Jade's bookstore, but I didn't pick it up until now. I wasn't really in the mood. YA is not really my thing, even though I love a zombie apocalypse story. But I was finally in the mood. I was finally ready to eat up some YA. I think Maureen Johnson put me in the mood. So in this, it's a lot like the Gone series by Michael Grant, or whatever his name is, except we all know I did not like that book at all. But it is pretty much a carbon copy, and well, not really a carbon copy because nobody disappears, but all the adults become zombies and all the children are left to fight these zombie-like creatures. So yeah, we're following everybody 14 and under in this group, and they call themselves, I want to say the Morrison's group. No, the Morrison's group are the other ones. I think these are the Sainsbury's groups. Basically, it's set in London and there's a group of children seeking refuge in this old Sainsbury's, fighting for their lives. And then you follow their travels across London to find refuge and safety. I will start by saying this rubbed me up completely the wrong way when I first opened the book, and I think page 1 had fat phobia on it, and I was like, brilliant. I know this is a 2010 story, but this is not a good start. And the same later on, there was a lot of homophobia in it. So I do want to preface with that, because I know it was written in 2010, but I do not condone that at all, and I'm not happy about it. But trying to ignore that fact, other than it, I absolutely love this story. This was so much better than I could have ever expected. First of all, I would not expect a lot of depth and darkness to a YA novel. My mistake. I don't know why I would, but this has everything from graphic loss of limbs and death scenes to cannibals. I mean, everything is in here. It is so fascinating to read. I definitely think there were a lot of times where I was like, oh, I'm not really having a good time right now. I'm not drawn into the story. I'm just kind of reading it for the sake of reading it. But then I'd get to the next scene and I'd be really enjoying it again. And so upon finishing it, I was so completely torn on my feelings, but ever since I have felt nothing but the compulsion to read it. And you'll actually see now I have the rest of the series ready to read because my lovely boyfriend Stu bought them for me because I kept talking about it. So I definitely am going to continue now because I have them all and I'm so excited to see where it goes. So clearly I really enjoyed it, but I will say I felt very torn upon finishing straight away. A lot of my favourite characters, which is really, really sad. There's a lot of characters in here and a lot of characters die. So go in with the warning that, you know, it doesn't shy away from death, even if it is a teen story. Like, it is surprising. The gore, the death, the darkness, it's all in here. And I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I will also say the writing is really good. I don't know why I'm acting surprised, but I've never heard of Charlie Higson other than this novel. I don't know if he's written anything else. I have no idea, but I will admit I'm quite surprised. But I really, really enjoyed it. And I think he wrote in a very fun, rapid, fast-paced tone, which was great, especially for the story type. And the action scenes held a lot of tension for me. I genuinely didn't know who was going to be okay and who wasn't because we've lost so many people, which is always a good feeling for me. Like, I hate my characters dying, but I also love a book where nobody is safe. They're some of my favourite books. So cannot recommend this enough. Jade did a great recommendation here. She's finishing this book today. She's rereading it and we're going to carry on the series together then, which I'm so excited about. So those are all the books that I read in February and my thoughts and feelings. Let me know if you've read any of these and what your thoughts were on the books, whether you like them, whether you dislike them. Do you agree or disagree with me? I would love to discuss down below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching and I shall see you in the next one. Bye.